Still.
I got rid of
Okay,
everybody.
what do you say? Okay.
Oh, yeah. This is Yogi to Yogi, not tech wizard to tech wizard. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, on your straw bin. The metal one, thanks. This is Yogi to Yogi. If you've never been here before, it's an opportunity to ask questions about practice mostly, but anything else that's related to your practice, to try to get advice from somebody who's been doing it for a while longer and maybe more experienced and can share. But we can also share our experiences. If you have things that relate to the question that have, can lend a helping hand, I'm all ears. Always want to learn new tricks myself. But it's Yogi to Yogi. Basically, it's like not trying to get too intellectual, not trying to philosophize too much. We want to really get into the practices and see how to make this all work. Okay? I'm going to have a hit from my breakfast before we go. Okay. So we take live and we take questions that were sent in. We'll start with the questions that were sent in. Where did it disappear to? Oh boy. There they are. I think. No. Hang on one sec, folks. Here they are. Okay. So Wagner, dear Dharma Bodhi, do you advise to learn about Marma points and nadis from the book Ayurveda and Marma Therapy? So first I'm going to stop right there. Anytime anybody asks me, can I learn a practice, from a book, I'm going to have a hard time with that, recommending that, because unless you have experience already. If you learned a Marma system somewhere else first and now you're picking things up to add to it, that's one thing. It's like trying to learn martial arts from books. So I'd say no right away, but let's look at the rest of the question. The book Ayurveda and Marma Therapy, Energy Points in Yogic Healing from Dr. David Frawley, Dr. Subhash Ranade, and Dr. Avinash Lele. Is it compatible with TMY system? If not, can you point where we should start to explore? Thank you. Synchronistically, it's funny, the one-year group is right now going through Marma Therapy training. This book, I'm going to stay out of it about being personal about it or not, and try to give you what other people have said about it, which is there's a lot of controversy. People strongly doubt that Subhash Ranade's idea that India had acupuncture just like China did. His idea of Indian acupuncture is like very close to Chinese. There's not a lot of proof for that. People aren't finding a lot of proof for that. So I'm kind of wondering about the system as a whole, Dr. Frawley has been known to take poetic license with Vedic and Tantric things at times. I'm referring to his books on astrology where he gives the bija mantras for the outer planets, which is not listed anywhere in the Vedas, but he feels in a way that he's a rishi and can see those mantras and takes that poetic license and puts it in a book as if it's gospel. These kind of things I have a hard time with. Nowadays, anybody can publish anything, they can say anything, and there's no way to check, or there's just no time to check. You can check, but there's no time. So on this topic of Marma therapy, look, this system may work wonderfully. Just because there's no ancient system of Ayurvedic acupuncture doesn't mean that there can't be Ayurvedic acupuncture, or that it wasn't with a few families and this guy discovered things about it, or that he took his Chinese acupuncture and melded it with Marma therapy and came up with something new and original that's very powerful. So, what can you say? That's all I can say about it. I would suggest, I learned it from Dr. Lad directly, and that was useful for me. It fit with our system quite well. So that's what I'd say on that one. Let me see. There's some stuff down there in Marma that came up, I see. Jack, right. I think Vasant Lad has a more accurate book. Oh, if he didn't have a book out when I learned it from Dr. Lad. So if he has a book out, I would definitely read his book. But like I said, when I opened up with this probably negative sounding ramble here, I would learn Marma therapy from somebody personally, right? I wouldn't learn acupuncture from a book, that's for sure, unless I was already a qualified acupuncturist. So I would learn it from somebody. But if he's got his book, that sounds good. Highly realized master has said when he's in a seated meditation, so aroused. Okay, we'll go to that later, Julia. So, okay, Wagner, explore Dr. Led's book. Sounds good. Get it in person if you can. Yeah, I'm always happy to teach that over a 3 or 4 day training. So sometime, I think you're in Brazil, right? I'm not sure, but if I come to Brazil after this next trip in October, which is already booked out with topics, we could always add marmotherapy. That'd be nice to do in some beautiful location in the jungle. Michal, do you think that for a person living in a Christian Western culture, practicing spirituality embedded in Indo-Tibetan culture will be as effective as it is for indigenous people? Absolutely not. It'll never be as effective. This is why we have Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga. Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga is not an ethnic Tibetan or ethnic Indian tradition in this sense, in that we don't bring forth and carry over ethnic aspects of the tradition, cultural aspects of the tradition, food, like we don't do pujas here and then all have Indian food, thali plates. You see this all over Europe and America. They'll do a puja, an Indian puja, Indian tantric puja, and then all of a sudden it's all thali plates everywhere and everybody's making curries as if that's something that's important to the tradition. No, we throw a bunch of ribs and burgers. We throw a bunch of burgers and ribs onto the barbecue, and that's what we do because we're Westerners, right? And if you're a veggie, then you barbecue your zucchini. So, this is a thing. It's an extremely important point you're bringing up. And I think it's what pollutes and causes a lot of problems and obstacles, pollutes traditions and causes problems and obstacles. My main teachers, both Satyananda and Holiness, were very, very clear about stripping every bit of the culture and the ethnicity and the food and the clothing styles and everything out of what they were teaching me that I should carry forward. And there is a very strong precedent for this in the traditions, right? So when I look around on the internet or I see people doing, nice spiritual teachings, good teachings from Tibetan tradition, from Indian tradition, like let's take the Indian tradition. It's very common to see all these nice ladies doing pujas. They're all Westerners, of course, but they're all in saris. And they're not in India. They're in Europe, they're in America, and they're all dressed up in these elaborate, expensive saris. And afterwards, they're having all these wonderful Indian meals that made of Indian cuisine. And you're going, why? And then all the prayers being chanted are in Sanskrit. The prayers, not the mantras, the prayers. And you have to go, why? For me, I have studied Tibetan and I've translated books in Tibetan and I've done the same with Sanskrit. And, for me, the languages are kind of second languages, third languages, and I like some of it in the original language. But all of my teachers said, take it out of Sanskrit. If it's not a mantra, because mantras are not Sanskrit. People that think mantras are Sanskrit are completely wrong. Mantras are mantras. They don't have any language base. They're not language, right? So take all of the prayers, they said, that are in Sanskrit. And Holiness, the great leader of the Bund, said, take all the prayers I'm giving you from Tibetan, out of Tibetan, put them in English. And I looked at him astonished and he said, what do you think we did with it in the first place? The Bund tradition's not from Tibet. He said it came from Persia and it came from India. So whatever came in from India, we changed the language to Tibetan so we could understand it, change the prayers. Whatever came from Persia along the Silk Route, we changed it into Tibetan so we could, actually, it came to Tibet from a place called Zhangzhung. And Zhangzhung has a different language than Tibet, written and spoken. So in Persia to Zhangzhung to Tibet. And so he said, you don't keep the original language. Now, we keep some of the original script of the Zhangzhung just to touch the origins. And if you see our temple, the Bun Dzogchen temple we built in Thailand at the land there, the cross beams have all the original Zhangzhung language up there of the heart mantras and so on. It's not because it's more mystical or powerful. It's just a language. The letters are just letters. It means nothing. It's to touch into the origin. You could say, well, I want to chant in Sanskrit. I want to chant in Tibetan because I want to touch the origin. Great, because it's just a language. But don't think it makes it any more powerful, any more sacred, and certainly not more effective. This is what we have to understand. And I would say, if you're going to do that, if I'm chanting Ganesh mantras, Saraswati mantras, I know what the words mean. So when I'm chanting it, I'm feeling and thinking what I'm saying. Are you able to do that? If you're able to do that, then chanting in Sanskrit and Tibetan is a good idea. If you like it, if you like foreign languages, that is, if you're not of Indian origin or Tibetan origin, right? But otherwise, you don't need it. And there's all these other customs that come with it that are completely unnecessary from Tibet, from India. These things are not necessary to have in the spiritual tradition to project the power of the spiritual method, the spiritual view of these areas, of these great masters who came from these areas in the world. To project that forward is not necessary to bring with it all the cultural trappings, ethnic trappings. And in fact, they're an impediment. I'm not the only one saying this. As I said, Holiness said it, Satchidananda said it. Namkha Norbu was very famous for saying, no one owns Dzogchen. It's not a religion. It's not Tibetan. It's not Indian. It's human. We only need the techniques and so forth. So I think, I'm going on about this quite long, but it's the third time this come up this week. So I think it's, synchronistically in the air, and I think we should really clear the air on it. One of the reasons that people said to me, I heard from my friend, his friends discouraged me from going into Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga. And I said, why? Well, we all looked at it together on the website, and then I decided to come to the trainings, when they get a little comfortable with me, they shared it with me. And I say, why? And they say, well, and here it is, the whole list of ethnicity things, cultural things that we don't do. It just, and they're talking about the things we don't do. And I said, do you understand the things you're saying that we don't do are cultural and ethnic? They have nothing to do with the spiritual work produced in that tradition. And they're like, oh, and they start to think about it, right? And this is one of the most salient features of the Mahasiddhas themselves, is that they were not just non-sectarian. They were actually trans-sectarian, para-sectarian. They were above sect. They were like, sect doesn't matter at all. If you come out of some ethnic cultural thing, you can certainly keep using it if you learned it in your tantra, but it's not necessary to it at all. They were all about this, all about dropping things away. They took away the big elaborate externalized pujas that you see, and they did them all internally with very simple offerings and so on. They, in fact, in one of the groups, in Machunda's group, which you can read this in the Machunda Samhita, there's a very clear rule that when you're practicing the Kaula Tantra, check this out, there are no signs allowed, no symbols allowed from any one sect. So, if you wear tilak like this and your other sect wears it like that and somebody else wears it like that, nobody's allowed to wear the tilak into class in a Kaula, strictly Machunda Kaula Tantra class, which is, 70, 80% of what we practice here in Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga. So right there, it's embedded in this tradition from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, depending who you listen to on the origin of the tradition, that we are non-sectarian. We're above sectarian. In fact, you're not even allowed to wear in your call sign, So this should kind of give you a sense of where we're at with that. So every time you can strip something away, you should. Here's the problem. You as a beginner practitioner, intermediate practitioner, you don't know what is ethnic, cultural, lifestyle, food choices, whatever, versus the real tradition and needed to be done in this way, right? So listen to your teacher about that. Find a teacher who wants to go outside of the cultural milieu, and then you can make a proper decision about how to streamline your practice or just practice Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga, which we did it for you already. All right, Ray, I imagine this is my buddy, Kung Fu buddy Ray in San Francisco. Hello, Ray. Wondering why some old guy like me, a little older than me, actually, I'm wondering why some teachers like Kavita Chinayan, I think you mean, and Shamani Jain do their chants without the correct ong, the nasalization with the anuswara, but instead just om. Shamani Jain gave some of the public bijas, but just chanted om and not using it the correct way. And all the bijas have the ong. In all my chants, I always use ong according to our way of doing it, no matter what anybody else does, even with the beginning of any prayer, no matter their origin. And bijas or anything, starting with our Dragon Gate Taoist system in the 1970s in Chinatown. Would like your comment on this. And also, is there any way to really warm second question. So first question, Why does Kavita, and I don't know who Shamani Jain is, I know Kavita, and you'd have to ask them directly why they chant the way they chant. I'm sure they have great reasons for it. All I can say is why we do it. The way I was instructed and the way we do it is that in the Kaula Tantra, we are nasalizing to get the effect of the chakras like the talu, the talu area, this transitional area between upper mouth, roof of mouth, and lower cranium cavity, where we have so much going on in tantric practice. We have 3 chakras lined up in that area and so on. So we're always ending with the ong so we can activate this part. And it's not really a physical body per se, it's an energy body which relates to the physical body. But we're trying to work with the energy body there and also perform uchara, which is to have the rising of the mantra start from down below and come up through the crown as we chant it. Usually that's why. And it's because the sound as well has a different quality than ma, 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 and ng. They're a very different quality of energy. They represent the sounds themselves that we make as humans of represent energetic states. So, it's a moot point about whether people go or ma in their mantras if their mind and their energy is not deeply connected to what they're trying to do anyway. So that's another point. So if we don't really have that kind of city power, we shouldn't worry about it that much. But if we're trying to get the energy to rise through our energy channel, central channel up to the crown, ong is absolutely the way to go if you're using that bija. But another way to do the on the end of any bija, another reason you would do it is that there's a certain manifestation power that comes with it this way. Okay. And we want to have that manifestation of that result that way. Okay. But, this is not a put down of how anybody else does their chanting. Kavita is a great teacher and does it from a tradition. I know her tradition well. They cross over with our tradition in the past in India. It's kind of like they're kind of brother-sister traditions, hers and ours. So at least the Indian side of mine. So, I have a lot of respect for what she does. I don't know this person, Shamani Jain, but I'm sure he's good too. There's different ways to do it for different reasons. Stay in your system, like stay in your lane. You know that one? It's very important. It's like let's give a quick analogy. If I take a whole bunch of medical systems, energetic medical systems, Reiki, Chinese medicine with acupuncture, marma therapy, whatever, mix a whole bunch of it up. You don't usually get a great medical system. You get something kind of confusing and mixed up. And that's what a lot of people do today, thinking more is better or thinking they have some kind of rishi wisdom and they're able to put things together like this. These things have come together over very long periods of time because of how they work. And it's very hard to reinvent the wheel. Same thing with martial arts, right? Ray knows this. If you try to mix a whole bunch of martial arts, you usually get crap, right? In some cases, it comes out really great, like the monkey practitioner down in Taiwan that teaches, their system combined a few things and it became really good. Yao Gong Mun, you have that in San Francisco, that combined dragon style that I teach with white eyebrow style and about 10% of Hunga. And that system really works, but it's rare. And they were put together by masters, you see. So keep down your lane, do it the way your tradition teaches you and you're all good, but do strip away ethnic and cultural stuff whenever possible, I would advise, because it just gets in the way for Westerners, All right. But or is not cultural. That's energetic. We have to do that correctly the way we're taught. Also, another thing Ray wants to know, is there any way to really, is that more? Did I hear I heard something. Phones off, please. Is there any way to really warm my body during my practice since I'm here in Daly City next to San Francisco where it's cold most of the time? And I have one of the biggest illusions in the world is that California is hot. I think this is one of the things that people around the world, California's hot. There's palm trees. There's freezing cold temperatures in the desert with those palm trees, by the way. Yeah, California can be really cold, especially San Francisco. Mark Twain, right? The coldest winter I had was summer in San Francisco. That's his quote, famous quote. Okay, how to dress it, how to get warm. Well, listen, a really great way to get warm is to, and you have a problem with blood pressure, so I wouldn't be holding my breath, but with the advice of an acupuncturist, why don't you try a moxa stick down at Chi Hai? I find that if you keep your body covered with blankets and, stuff like that. And you put the moxa stick at chi hai, instructed by your acupuncturist, if it is indeed okay for you and not contraindicated, can really do a lot for central warming. And again, here, this is going to flip out people who are cultural, Indophiles. But when I taught warrior yoga in Berkeley, and it was the freezing winter mornings, like it gets in Daly City, and Berkeley can get cold too. How did we start our warm up? We did jump rope. Remember? We did jump rope. We did the Billy Robinson's super hard anaerobic hit training jump rope for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And you're stoked. You're ready to practice by then. And people say, oh, that's physical exercise. Why? You're supposed to be spiritual yoga person. Well, we need to warm up the body. It needs to be warmed up really quick. We don't have like 3 hours to do a really long, slow warm up. We're doing it before we do warrior yoga, before we run out the door to go to work. And so you adapt, right? So I don't know if you can jump rope these days, but jump rope before you practice. Why not? Put moxa stick on it if you can't do that. One of the things I do is to warm up now that I'm old, warm up for weightlifting workouts, because I have to do a lot of weightlifting these days to therapize my knee and both shoulders and keep them from falling off. But I'm older, and it takes a lot longer to warm up as you get older. The channels, tighten up and everything. If we stretch a lot, that's a great way to stay limber, which allows the blood to flow through easier and get warmer faster. But what I do is go on my exercise bike. I just do 5 minutes on the exercise bike, and it's a really slow pace, 85 revolutions per minute on setting number 5, 6, or 7, which is out of 10. So it's not the worst. It's not the least. And I just keep that going. And then my pulse rate will be like 110, 115 after. And I have a nice full feeling of blood everywhere, out to my fingertips, my toes, through the whole body. But there was no strain involved. It was very easy to get that warm up. And there's nothing wrong with doing that before you do your spiritual practices. Oh my God, it's exercise. You can't do it before spirituality. Yes, you can. It's fine. Hang on, everybody who's, got these ideas of the divine that are incorrect. All right. So, all right, Ray. Ciao, buddy. Jorge from Chile. Hello, Jorge. Great to see you on here again. First question, more of a request. As if you could please tell us some story or stories of Machunda for inspiration. Well, there's not a lot of stories of Machunda. The reason is he's the oldest. He's the first of all the great Mahasiddhas who rainbow light bodied. He's revered by the Tibetan Buddhists as the father of all the Mahasiddhas. And they find it difficult to figure out how to do that since he was a Shaivist, but they find a way to do it. And they usually say Shiva was a student of the Buddha in a past life. That's what they've said before. He's obviously the head inspiration for our lineage. And we don't care if he's a Buddhist or not. He was a Shaivist. So there's not a lot of stories because he's from really way back, like Dattatreya. I see Dattatreya and both of them on the wall right on my right side right here now, painting wise. And the stories about Dattatreya are principle-based myths. Probably he didn't do anything that they say. No one knows, It's like saying what Moses did. We have no idea, really. And, Moses could have been dropping DMT for all we know to get the 10 Commandments. So same thing with Machunda. We really don't know what he was doing a lot, but there are mythological stories about him, a few, not a lot. And there's some books that came out. Stella Dupuy. How do you say her name? Where's Dupuy? Stella Dupuy. She wrote a book on, I'm trying to say it right, wrote a book on Matsyendra Nath, we call Machunda Natha, and I think it's a good book. And there's probably some stories there. The Machunda Samhita has a seminal story that starts the text and it ends it. So that's a kind of interesting thing. We know one story about him that's passed down constantly through yoga lineages as guru yoga training and as direct realization view teachings. What is beyond dual and non-dual, right? So when a student, it's kind of like a koan, this story. To contemplate it really blows your mind. One day, Gorakshnath, not the one who started the Nath lineage that you have in India now. There were 3 famous Gorakshas over time. The original Goraksha was a student of Machunda a long time ago. We think about 3,000 years ago. And he came around to the Kula house, and the students were all like waiting for Machunda, and they couldn't find him. And they looked to him as a senior student and said, where's Machunda? Where's Guruji? I don't know. So he sat down in meditation and went into his deepest inner self to pull on his connection between Agya Chakra, between him and his guru, because you can always communicate this way when you have true guru yoga, which so few people have today, but it works. And I can tell you for a fact it works psychically, realistically. So he goes searching through his chakras, through the realms of the chakras, and goes into, visits all these other realms and finds him in the Apsara realm. Apsaras are these kind of, not dakinis, but kind of erotic, but childish, erotic, but super naive versions of dakinis that are sexualized, but in a playful, childlike way. That's how we see them or experience them as human beings, but they're obviously energy without physical form, consciousness without physical form. They're beings who represent that kind of playful, loving spillover borderline between sexual play and just loving play without it getting like hot, heavy, sweaty, so that there's this innocence to the sexual expression and so forth. They're always depicted around water, waterfalls, ponds, shooting water out of their mouths, playing in the water, splashing each other. And they're all pretty, pretty little girls. So, in a man's eyes. So Machunda was seen in this realm, or a realm like that, you could say, cavorting, sporting with the locals, as it were, playing water fights and, and having sex and drinking wine and playing music and, doing all the things that we do. And Goraksha was freaked out, and he went up to him and said, Guruji, snap out of this. What are you doing? You're lost in your desires. You're obviously enjoying this way too much. He's like, you're enjoying this. You shouldn't be enjoying this. He's like, Guruji. And then Machunda, and you have your own interpretation you have to figure out about this. Machunda then snaps out, apparently, and says, oh my gosh, get me out of here. And Goraksh takes him back. He inhabits his body once again. They find his body in the Kula house. And then he comes back to his body life, and starts teaching again and so on. What is the story on that? It's considered to be the great rescue of the guru by the disciple. There's so much to get from it, especially in today's environment. It's such an amazing story. First, I guess, foremost, you have to ask, what's the main teaching of it? Well, the main teaching of it goes stage by stage, depending on what we're ready to hear. If we're really deep into Guru Yoga and we're really working that level of the practice, then we have to think the greatest thing, the greatest message of that teaching was that Goraksha, am I still on the screen when I sit up, honey? Yeah, okay. I can't see because I'm reading the question. The greatest thing about that to learn about Guru Yoga is that in the highest level, Goraksha goes to rescue his guru who has fallen. Goraksha thinks in his mind, when he sees him like this, my guru has fallen into debauchery, into closed symbols and treasury of worms, Rahu karma in the 8th house or something, or 12th house. And he's just lost his mind here, having probably the 12th house, lost his mind having sex and drinking and, and instead of going, oh my God, you're the biggest loser, I'm going to go back to, India. I'm going to get back in my body, go online and cancel you and destroy you with the Me Too movement and point you out as another terrible teacher with all these flaws, which would be the normal way to do it for, if a guru farts in a room today, much less goes to another dimension having sex, right? So instead of that, he's moved by his guru disciple love and devotion and his vow, which is an unbreakable Vajra vow. That's how it used to be in the ancient times. Anyway, Vajra Samaya, unbreakable vow. And he rescues his guru instead. Why? Because his guru is the one who gave him initiation. His guru is the one who pointed out his own nature of his essential mind. His guru is the one who unconditionally has loved him and served him as a student into becoming his own self-independent siddha. At this stage, he was a siddha, right? Not a Mahasiddha yet. And that's the most beautiful story for me, is that, if I'm married here and if my wife stumbles and becomes an alcoholic, I divorce her? I throw her out on the street? Or do I remember the vow? And do I remember that I vowed to be with this person and really try to work with them and really try to help them? Of course, there's some point where you don't help anymore because it diminishes your own ability to live your life. I had a friend who was trying to kill himself on the subway every night in New York. He'd wake me up like clockwork, 1:32 a.m. Here's the phone call. It's Joe on the tracks again, crying away in his 40 Enneagram way. I'm going to kill myself. And I would go out and come back and be exhausted the next day for work. And my first wife said to me finally, this is killing you. You can't do this. This is like 2 months of this now. It's at least 5 nights a week. You're killing yourself. I know you love this guy. I love this guy because he was my first, one of my first Kung Fu masters, under another master that he introduced me to. And so I don't give up, on my masters like that. And I really love this guy, but it was killing me. And he didn't want to change, and he showed no desire to change, and there was no way out. So finally, one time he called and I said, I can't do it anymore. You're killing me, and I got to go to work. I'm not rich. I can't just rescue you all night, rest of my life. But the difference in the story is that Machunda goes, oh, yeah, I'm here, and you came to save me. Great, thanks. Take me back, which tells us a lot about the story. It tells a lot that we should also never give up ourselves completely in trying to rescue somebody else. If it destroys your own development, what's it worth? Right? Okay. But we should definitely remember our vows. And the beauty of that is the unbreakable vow of love and devotion that Gorakshanath had with Machunda. Doesn't leave him, doesn't abandon him. He brings him back. He goes to get him. I'm sure there was a whole bunch of people left the Kula house after that, no doubt. But he didn't. So that's one lesson. The other lesson is, what did Machunda do there? Why was he there? Was it a test that he was giving the students, which happens a lot from tantric gurus, especially these Mahāsiddha types? They want to see who can be at a higher level of function. You can't waste time teaching 100 people. They have to get a kula of 5 or 12 people. So they do this weeding out process sometimes by doing little tricks like this. Another teaching on a higher level, he went off to go into the Apsara realms to enjoy himself. Let's leave it at that, to enjoy himself, to have sex, to drink wine, to play rock and roll, to dance, to cavort. Now, the question is that within the realm of morality or immorality? Is it immoral behavior? Is it amoral behavior? Is it against the Dharma, right? So when you look at the rules of the Kaula, there's nothing against any of that in the rules of the Kaula, especially for the Guru. So why did we all instantly, retract in horror because we thought Machunda had become debauched? This is a great teaching. Do great beings, do Mahāsiddhas have sex? Do they have sexual desire? Do they have desire for food? Do they want a pizza versus a hot dog? Do they have preferences? And when we go beyond the dual and non-dual, in our own experience of life, when we go through the 12 stages, past through stage 7, the integration of 7 and 8 and 9 is very difficult for a lot of us that came from traditional hard systems of purification, which, pretty much assures you're going to get to 7. Otherwise, you can't get there. But by going through that necessary purification process, a little bit of morality consciousness sneaks in, or a lot, dragging stage 2 along with you in a certain sense, stage 5 along with you in a certain sense. And then when you get to 8 and 9, you're like, I don't know if it's okay to have a sexual urge. I don't know if it's okay to desire this food over that. Shouldn't I be beyond any desires? And you have to review the teachings and the practices on doctrine of desire and understand that desire and the root of desire is pure Parashakti energy as it is. And that all that's fine. It's a matter of attachment. And it's a matter of when you're experiencing those actions, are you reconditioning yourself or not? That's the main point. As an advanced teaching on 12-stage view, someone who's in stage 8 and 9 is experimenting with indulging, if I could say, in the bhoga, chamoksha, part of bhoga chamoksha, the bhoga, the enjoyment part of life, by becoming a normal human again, having normal appetites for food, for sleep, for sleeping in a little bit, having sex and having orgasms and giving orgasms and drinking and listening to fine music and being aesthetic, looking at beautiful paintings, making beautiful paintings, playing instruments, all of this aesthetic world is coming back. Sensual aesthetic world of Eros is coming back, and it's experimented with. The key point is this, and don't fool yourself. If in that activity, let's say sex, because it's really strongly conditioning. If in that activity you're being reconditioned at any level, one atom of reconditioning, it has failed. Doesn't mean you drop back to stage 2 or 3 or something. You're still in stage 8 or 9 working, but I just got a little reconditioned there. How did that happen? My mind grabbed onto the experience of the sexuality, objectified my partner outside myself for a moment as something which gratifies me, which some subtle level or gross level, but usually subtle level in stage 8 or 9, reifies the narrative of the I consciousness of who I am, instead of the process of sexuality as an expansion of the Parashakti, benefiting all beings and the pleasure shared by all beings and the joy shared by all beings, and nothing's taken at home, you know? So that's the way the inner bhava of the stage 8, 9 person moving through the stages, but it's kind of hard to do sometimes. So we could see Machunda in that story might be exemplifying that, or because we know he's stage 10 and above, he's no longer experimenting with it. He has no possibility of being reconditioned by any activity he's doing, even to produce more echo karmas, because he's stage 10. Karmak Shai, he's gone. Karmak Shai, stage 10, the Sanskrit name for stage 10, Karmak Shai means broken karma. There's no more karma. He's free. So whatever he does is blessing. Whatever he does is pure spontaneous action. And if we understand that from a stage 10 being, it means even when Machunda went to the Apsara realm, just the urge to go was arising spontaneously in service to humanity, because every urge arises in service to humanity. If a stage 10 being eats the sardines versus the chili peppers, it's a serving to humanity in some way. Of course, we don't know how, but it is. You have to just assume that and understand that, because they can walk through walls. There's a difference between you and them. Stage 10 being, the test is, can you walk through a wall? Okay, that's assured. So I wouldn't doubt any motive of a person who can walk through a wall, right? So then when he's there, we can see it as an 8-9 exercise, or a reminder about our 8-9 exercise, or something we're going to get to someday if we ever get to 8 to 9 in this life. We can see it as the expansion of his spontaneity, where he takes off to go to this realm because the student body that he serves can benefit from that in some way. And the apsaras he's there with, do you know if they're just apsaras or are his students as well? And he's practicing sexual sadhana with them. He's teaching them. In other words, everybody's always benefiting in a Mahasiddha mandala. That's why we try to constantly have this expansion experience of benefit and generosity for everybody, until we make it to that place where it becomes who we are, where the very fabric of our life is compassionate radiance, right? Machunda should be there. So maybe there's a little story to inspire you there. Second, from Jorge, I took the 6-realm course and review it on a regular basis, though I am eager to know some practical way of dealing with vile demons, since I seem to waver every now and then from daily sadhana into this realm. Maybe diet, a particular sadhana, or anything to loosen and free these chains. All tips greatly appreciated. Wandering into the demon realm. Well, I mean, we all do it. So what would be a tip to help you stay out of it? I think the best one that I can think of, because it doesn't have anything to do with laying a trip on yourself about being nice, which is hard when you're doing the demon realm, is just go slow. One of the main energies of the demon realm, the vile demon realm, is hyperactive speed. Think about people on speed, people on coke. They're demon realm beings in that moment, possessed by the drug, and it's driving them to go fast. Fast food is for demons, right? Sugar, that kind of thing. So what you want to do is slow everything down. Take a whole week to slow down your body. Take a 1-week experiment to do everything you would normally do a bit slower. So I would give this yogi to yogi in a controlled voice, where I talk a bit slower like this. And I would hypnotize all of you. And at the end, I would advertise my courses. That's what I see people doing. But no, all humor aside, go slow. Speak slow. Move slowly. Everything slow. If you cook dinner, used to cooking dinner, cook it slow. Don't do it fast, like chop, 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 chop. Try to slow every single thing down that you do. The next week, try to slow your feeling. Try to catch the agitated feeling. Keep the slow movement, but now try to go to the feeling. And when the feeling the energy inside you tries to get you to go faster, start catching that feeling and slow it down. This is a pith way to cut off the demon realm. The third week, when you're working with that, now, as soon as the mind's showing the movement to the demon realm thought, the demon realm construct that gets us in trouble in the first place, that we follow with emotion and action. Slow it down. Slow it down. Slow it down means watch it arise. Look at that. It's telling me his thoughts coming up. It's telling me I hate this person. Oh, wow. Slow it down. Slow it down. The more you slow it down, the more ridiculous the thought of hatred looks, feels, and you won't have to express it. Okay? Try that one. That's a really good one for demon realm occupied people. Third, could you please name other names from other non-dual traditions than Shaivism related to the energies of Ganesh, Prana, Shakti? Oh, sure. I feel an interest to know them and visualize them, and it is inspiring to be in touch with these same manifestations arising from different cultures. That's cool. So on one level, if you understand Santeria or Condomlé to be non-dual, it isn't. It's actually dualistic, and I explored it, but there's a closeness. It's like semi-non-dual. They have Elegua. Elegua, at least that's how I was taught to say his name. You too? Elegua in Cuba. We were taught by Rudra. He's Cuban, right? So Elegua is a kind of Ganesha energy of the Santeria that I used to like a lot, represented by a little baby doll that they would have by the door in Cuba if they were a Santeria practitioner, or a baby doll head, actually, and make offerings to it. Quite gruesome offerings, actually. Blood pouring all over it with feathers and stuff, honey and ants, and it was wild. But anyway, that's a Ganesha kind of energy, actually. Another one I love from the Chinese is Guankung. Guankung is one of my favorite deities. I have a statue of him somewhere here or at your house, and we still can't find it. We're going to unpack it and get it. I'm pretty sure it's here. But as you might know, he's related to a lot of Kung Fu systems, because we're trying to have that big-hearted hero, compassion, sacrifice your life for the benefit of others feeling from being a warrior, not a fighter, but a warrior, a martial artist, not a fighter, or a combat sport person like MMA. That's not martial arts, MMA. Martial artists may do MMA, but MMA is not a martial art. Not yet, anyway. Maybe it will be someday. So Guangung is someone who's on that Ganesha level as well, which is kind of good. Anybody else think of anybody from other traditions that would be good there? Clearing obstacles? No? All right. Prana Shakti, Ma Prana Shakti. Well, any kind of prana deity that you can think of, but yeah, it's hard for me to nail down some, except for the corollaries in the Tibetan Dharma systems, which came from the Indian anyway. So all those are there. But Ma Prana Shakti is like a generic energy. So she's more like, in a sense, I would say, Bhairavi in a sense, where Ma Prana Shakti, though, spans para, and apara. She spans the three levels. Ma Prana Shakti encompasses all three levels of potential energy coming into form and movement and dynamism, and energy taking actually form, right? Those are the three levels of para, and apara. So Prana Shakti covers all three. I don't know many deities like that. I think he wanted different cultures, other non-dual traditions than Shaivism. So Tripura Sundari is like that, but yeah, good call. But she's in Shakta Shaivism. Saraswati, goddesses of wisdom. Who is Athena? Sophia? Who's the goddesses of wisdom from Greece? Athena. I like a lot of the Greek gods as well. I'm kind of into the Greek thing. So I think they're cool to use. There's a lot to learn from Greek mythology for sure in this way as well. Yeah, and then you have Sharab Chama in the bun. She would be the goddess of wisdom, that powerful wisdom and compassion, Sharab Chama. Gorgeous statue of her at Menri Monastery in India, just gorgeous. Go down the valley from the guy's side, go down the valley to the nunnery, up the other side of the nunnery. In their temple, I mean, wow. I always had a goal to make one of those temples on some land I live on before I croak. See if it happens. Shambhunatha. Shambhunatha's got a great corollary, I think, in the bun called Shenla Odkar. Shenla Odkar is a beautiful corollary for Shambhunatha. Any others? Shambhunatha audience? Vajrasattva, good. There's a good one from for Shambhunatha. Vajrasattva in the Vajrayana is a good one. Nice and white like him as well. Shenla Odkar's white. Shenla Odkar and Shambhunatha share this kind of passive image. Vajrasattva's got a bell and a Vajra. He's a little more dynamic, but it's still the same energy. Anuttara Shiva, Anuttara Shiva is Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri in Vajrayana, or Kuntung Zampo. There you see direct corollary. Yeah, so there you go. Have fun with that. Have fun with a bit of that. Oh, we got a fourth question. Okay, next page. For 3 years, I've been practicing the foundations from the foundation course. Good for you. Awesome. You must be changing a lot in your character, right? At the beginning, I used to do the whole practice daily in around 2 hours. Excellent. Some relatively short periods have been where I have stopped practicing, but then re-engaged for lesser time. From doing just prayer of awakening to most of the times going from section 1 to 6, then jumping to 12. That's fine. This is because I have less time since I have more work. Good for you, right? Yeah. And feel the need to rest more time too, right? Question is, since I have practiced more the first sections last 2 years, but I want to deepen in the whole system, would you recommend me do section 1 and then do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for a period of time? Yeah, I would. That's a great idea, because you really want to accumulate like 100,000 repetitions of the inner level of the practice, which we don't teach that much in the course online, but we do it in the cohorts. You want to get 100,000 accumulations of each one. And if you did it a lot for 2 hours every single day, you probably got close to some of that in that first period. So doing sections 8 through 12 makes a lot of sense to do it for a longer time. Of course, always pepper it with little feelings like you think, okay, today I really need to do recalibrating 5 lights. So you pop it in, or I really need to do a prayer of energy body, awakening energy body, something like that. Okay. That's okay. But there's a good idea. Okay. Excellent. Shivanandani, what are the main characteristics of stage 4? Are there more appropriate practices for that stage? What are they? Main characteristics and practices for stage 4. Well, we could go really long on it. Let's see what we can do in a short way to try to make it helpful for you and anybody else who's dealing with that. In stage 4, the actual practices you're doing stay the same fairly much from stage 3. And you may have received them in stage 2. We're opening our view to a little wider lens. So you're qualifying for more the beginnings of what we would call inner tantra. Stage 5 is where we classically qualify for inner tantra. We have outer tantra, inner tantra, secret tantra, most profound tantra, 4 levels. So if we do it by stages, it's a pretty close correlation. In stage 1, there's no practice, of course. So in stage 2, we have the outer tantra. That continues in stage 3 and stage 4. But your inner experience of working it loosens up and gets freer and gets more energetic as you go. You get better at it as you go. The results get better as you go, like this, right? And then when you hit stage 5, when you go up to stage 5, so it's 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is where inner tantra would start. Inner tantra means now I have a deep relationship with the guru. Now I'm doing inner practice, which is involved with the subtleization, esotericization of the external practices, finding them within my own energy system, my own mind, my own essence, that they bring me back to my essence. This is that journey of inner tantra. So in stage 4, we're still not really practicing inner tantra. We shouldn't be, actually, really shouldn't be. To be truthful, most of us practice way ahead of where we're at because so much is accessible now and teachers throw so much stuff at us. But without a proper foundation, these higher practices don't end up taking us anywhere. You want to go on this great 4-wheel drive journey. So you buy a Jeep, the Jeep Wrangler, the best 4-wheel drive in the world, always rated the best in the world. All these tests, right? I want a Jeep Wrangler. I'm going to go through Indian mountains and Himalayas. Okay, get a Jeep. Great. So you buy the stage 8, 9 vehicle, the stage 10 vehicles, like the Mahāsiddha of all 4x4s is a Jeep Wrangler, right? but you haven't done any foundation training. You don't know how to drive on broken ground. You don't know what happens when you're sliding down a mountain of ice. You don't know anything about how to go over big boulders, and you haven't done any training. So you get there with this Jeep, and then you go off a cliff and it's gone, or worse yet, it sits there and you don't know how to turn the hubs to put the 4-wheel drive in place, and you can't use it. This is how I see it when people practice ahead of it. So in stage 4, what are the main ways of practicing? Everything you did from stage 2 in the outer level, but you double down on it with a sense of sweetness and softness, and you open up into the journey being the journey, basically, like feeling like I'm starting to get on a path now. My life has come together in certain ways where I feel like I see some kind of path forming, some nascent path is developing in front of me as one hunch leads me to the next thing I'm doing, which opens up another door for me. And I walk through that door and I have another hunch about something else. And am I going somewhere? Is something happening here? That's the real feeling of 4. And I think the main practice in the new practice for stage 4 is to have located what lineage you want to practice in. What am I, a Bumpo? Am I a Vajrayana? Am I a Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga person? Am I a Taoist? Whatever. Find that in stage 4 through the signs and through the deeper work and through feeling into your karmic connections and through exploring in stage 3 and 4 all these different traditions, and start to feel the outer guru yoga starting. It can start in 3 for sure. This whole process can start in 2. But by 4, it becomes, I would say, the most important practice. You're keeping your other practices in the same lane. You're still working them. They're coming up because you're getting more involved, more engaged with it. You're growing in wisdom. You're understanding how to apply this more. And so 4 is then opening. The energy of 4 in you is opening through the practice, through the development, through the perseverance, through the commitment, through the unwavering commitment to this practice and the system, and possibly the teacher who gave it to you, working on an outer guru yoga level. In 4, it starts to open up and show you like the real potential, start to show, wow, things can get really, this is kind of amazing. You get this feeling. And that means the outer guru yoga becomes much more important at this stage. So it takes kind of like center stage. You want to be around the guru more. You want to attend as many trainings as you can. If you live locally, you want to go to volunteer to pick the mangoes or whatever, whatever you want to be around a lot and develop outer guru yoga, because you want to develop in yourself the sense of, first of all, clear, committed knowledge. This is my teacher. Because then when you go stage 5, that has to be formalized with good initiation and all that kind of thing. And if we remember the teachings of the 12-stage view, when you transit stage 4 to 5, there's a Shaktipata that has to take place. That Shaktipata is not given by the teacher by hitting you on the head with a peacock feather, a la Muktananda or some baloney like that. It's that you inside have to have an inner revelation. Grace is outside, inside, upside down. It's everywhere. You have to have the inner revelation. Oh, I'm moving from 4 to 5 now. Wow, I can feel this unspoken mystical connection to the teacher. Having gone through psychotherapy in stages 2, 3, and 4, having gone through making myself my own authority in stages 2, 3, and 4, where I don't buy swampland in Jersey anymore. I can't be groomed by some predatory type of teacher person. I can't be abused by anybody because I have 100% responsibility for myself. Been there, done that. I am strong. I am powerful, and I am choosing to follow this karma that's beautifully unfolding in 4, taking me into 5 with this teacher. This is really the picture of 4. Because without that Shaktipata, which comes with the revelation of the teacher and moving into 5 that way together, you and the teacher together, the new practices that you could learn will not be effective unless there's a new state of awakening in your being as a higher level of Shaktipata. You see, you had a lower level of Shaktipata that got you on the path. Now, this second big one, maybe you had 5 or 6 Shaktipatas, but the first one was the most important. It got you going. And the second one now is when you transit 4 to 5 and you become completely committed to that guru, that path, and you're going to take that initiation. That one then is the next big one, because you're saying, I'm leaving the square world. I'm committing to entering the round world. That's why you really got to understand this. And I think one of the biggest parts of 4 is to read and explore and contemplate what would it be like to leave the square world. What's a square world? The world of obligations to society, the world of seeing things the way that the general population, the gen pop, as they say in prison, the way they see the world. That's not the way I want to know the world, because it's a diluted subject object oriented way of seeing and way of relating with the world, way of relating with others. There's no compassion there, really. There's no love at the basis of it. It's all transactional. It's all what I can get or what you can get, mutually, beneficial, but it's all transactional. And it's a whole different way of being. So we want to explore that whole, what is a round world, as Chogyam Trungpa used to call it, more like a spherical world. He'd say, in a square world, cube world, you can stand flat. Okay, I feel safe and solid. That's us. We're always feeling safe and solid. I got my safe, secure job, my safe, secure spouse who gives me affection and sex regularly, and I'm all set there. And they tell me I'm great, and I've got this job, and I have security. I've got a house, and not to mention an earthquake can come and take your house any moment, and illness can take your spouse, and whatever. But we think we're secure. It's total bullshit. But we think we're secure on this cube. The round world then is a round sphere, a sphere where we're slipping constantly, where there's really no place to stand ever, where you feel, okay, I'm solid in this situation, right? So 4 is when you really read about and try on the round world, so that when you get into 5, when you've really committed to living the round world, you're prepared a bit. And you want to understand, what would that be like? What would it be like if I had no reference points? This is the point. What would it be like if I had no reference points? Wow. This really open situation where you're no longer buying into all of the grooming behaviors, we call them in our school, the ways of acting and functioning unconsciously in a culture, in a ethnic, cultural, geographic location. We pick up all these grooming behaviors. That is, when you watch chimpanzees picking the bugs out of each other, or monkeys picking the bugs out of each other's hair, Well, scientists looked at that and saw that, 90% of the time there's no bugs there. It's like me rubbing my friend's shoulder while we're watching a movie. Hey, you like the movie? It's good, isn't it? Just rubbing his shoulder, affirming that he's my buddy, he's my dude. We're watching a movie together. There's this comfort thing developed, right? Called grooming behavior. Well, what we do up till stage 4 is almost all grooming behavior. And when it's not, it's when we're sitting at the altar doing our practice. But even that can be done as grooming behavior, right? That's terrible. So we have to see underneath even that. This is to begin to understand the round world with no reference points, where no ways that you used to create images of yourself will satisfy you anymore or stick. And it's more open-ended. Things are more open-ended, happening freely, okay? This is what I'd recommend, Shivananda, and anybody else who's working 4 going into 5. Intensify your guru yoga to discover, I'm still codependent. I still get a little sad if the guru didn't look at me in the lecture. I want that. I want that feedback. Oh, they didn't look at me. Okay, you're not ready for 5. Keep working stage 3, 4, 2, whatever. And maybe it's also, I'm not really sure that this is my teacher. Great. Stay in 4, work it long enough to know if it is or isn't your teacher, like that kind of thing. Okay. That's what I suggest. And then this other level of trying to live more, contemplating what it would be like to live round world, maybe even taking some steps, a little bit here, a little bit there, to try it on. Because in 5, actually, that's what you're committing to with that level of the vow, though people don't usually think about it and don't usually live it. It's very common for people to practice stage 5 practices, stage 5 lifestyle from an external standpoint, but not internal. No real commitment to the guru yet, even though they're initiated. They'd leave in a heartbeat if the guru was screwing a donkey in the backyard when they came over for satsang. They don't have the Gorakshnat faith to go with the Machunda. That kind of thing. They're doing practices of a deep inner tantric yoga level when they don't really understand the difference between dualistic energy and non-dualistic energy, between dualistic energy and Sambhogakaya, right? The Shiva Shakti Tattva, Shakti Bindu. And so there's a lot of that going on. It leads to no result and frustration. Worse yet, it could lead to self-delusion, thinking there's a good result, like a high result. So take your time in 3 and 4, because 5's the big plunge. Remember that big Shaktipata that moves us into 5? There has to be an awakening that takes us into 5. 5 can't happen just by choosing. There has to be a sense of awakening. That awakening means you have a new instrument to use in the practice of stage 5 that you're now expressing. You have a new set of instruments. You have a new machine. You're not what you were before. The new Shaktipata gives you a capacity to work in the spiritual work, as Rudy would say, in a way that you couldn't have done before. It's like someone gave you an extra arm. All of a sudden, you're doing this new level of work because you have 3 arms and you can triangulate, Okay, so it's really like a whole new capacity. We have to look for that. So let's keep that up. That's good for 4 for now. Let me go back up to the top. Looks like a lot of questions rolled in. And you're in the room here. You can feel free to jump in. I don't have to get through all this. Yours are important too, okay? You folks, there's about 10 of you here. Is that Guru Sharanagati? Mm-hmm. You have mentioned what's the wrench there? I like the wrench. Does that mean you're hard at work there, Guru Sharanagati? You've mentioned a story of a highly realized master who said, when he is seated in meditation for several hours, he might only experience being essence directly for a few seconds or 2 minutes, actually. And that's Namkha Norbu is who said that. And yes, he was the world's probably most famous Dzogchen teacher and easily one of the top 10 Dzogchen teachers of the last 50 years, And yes, he did say that. And I was there when he said it. And I thought that was extraordinary and warranted further discussion, which we had. Yes, so that's true. You didn't ask any more about that. Would the master at that one? So I'll connect that and then go back up to Mehdi. Would a master at stage 10 experience being essence directly for a greater duration than the master above? Or is the stage 10 being's perception of time completely gone at that point? Yeah, the master of stage 10 no longer meditates because there's no distinction between being in the state or out of the state of their essence. They don't understand what that means anymore, in or out of the state of essence, in it for a minute, out for a minute. Namkha Norbu was in a obviously very high stage of life and practice, somewhere 8, 9 for sure. A term revealer, all kinds of amazing stuff this guy did. And he was a really genuine being. And he actually was practicing kind of a Trika Mahāsiddha Yoga approach, although he was only teaching the Dzogchen. He also said, no culture, no ethnicity, no religion, it's just practice, clear theory like we do. So, I was just greatly inspired by being with him for the short time I was with him. Yes, a stage 10 being has no measurement on the essence, whatever, because that's all they know. That's their experience every moment. Should I go to the rest of hers and finish them? Traversing stages. Wow, you really, whoa, hey, look at that. Traversing stages 7, 8, 9. When you teach that an unbroken experience of realization will be increasingly stabilized, are you referring to an increased duration of those few second openings into the experience of being essence directly until that direct essence experience is unbroken? Okay, the stabilization of 7, 8, 9 refers to much more than just an increasing ability to be so-called in and out of the experience of natural presence more. But that's a hallmark of increasing those stages. There's no question about it. One of the things we'll notice is that there's an unbroken sense of awareness. Forget about what we're calling about the state of the nature of our essence. The awareness capacity of you as a human being, as you hit 7, 8, 9, will increase dramatically from 7 to 8 to 9. And the ability to be like really powerfully aware at higher stages will, be natural and unbroken. This is really a very important part of what's stabilized. The other things that are stabilized, like if I'm practicing, let's say, if I'm doing Way of Water and I'm practicing deity yoga, the deity mandala will be so much more stabilized. I'll be living in the deity mandala in unbroken fashion in 7, 8, and 9. If I'm a Way of Fire practitioner, Kundalini Hatha Yoga and Mahakumbhaka and so forth, then I'm going to be experiencing the union of that spaciousness and Shakti that comes as the result of the Mahakumbhaka practice And that's going to be integrated more with my daily experience through 7, 8, and 9 without having to rely on revving it up in the practice all the time. Though I may still do the practice of the Mahakumbhaka because it's part of my lifestyle as a yogin, right? And conscious competence. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more than it's not just having more unbroken experience like Namkhai Norba was talking about for a minute each hour of session or whatever, each 2-hour session, whatever. Then you wrote, or in 7, 8, 9, does the increasingly stabilized unbroken experience of realization also include a majority of moments where you are not experiencing being essence directly? Okay. These questions of being essence, not being essence, and experiencing it, not, those questions are asked from a 1 through 5, stages 1 through 5 mind. After the Shaktipata of 4 to 5, and when 5 dissolves into 6, 7, those questions won't be so understandable anymore, forming them, especially when you're in 8 or 9. The sense of falling in or out of natural presence is going to start to get kind of iffy. Like, what is that? I'm not really sure anymore. So the question's kind of wrong, if I could say it, or from a different stage. Okay. Yeah. I think I covered that. Is instantly remembered, invoked, and karma can be the drop, not activate. Yeah. Okay. So I think we covered all that. If I didn't get it quite, feel free to send another refining question in there. We'll go back up to maybe which chakra to work on before the prayers to make them more effective. Vishuddha. This chakra-oriented approach to yoga is not our approach, Midi. Sorry. It's popularized today. It's not so important. It's important for you to go into your intention before you do the prayers and connect to the meaning and power of the prayers and your deep sense of Guru Yoga to the lineage masters. All that naturally activates the chakras. See, we kind of have the cart before the horse. I don't want to go into Vishuddha and activate that, and that's going to make the prayers happen. What I want to do is go in and deeply love my guru, love my lineage, take an urgent approach towards getting realized before I leave this mortal frame so I can benefit beings. And as I intently aspire from my heart to pray and have these prayers become effective, that's what starts the chakras functioning. And they're the chakras that should be functioning. For us to override it and say, I'm going to go in this chakra and pray from that chakra, this is actually ass backwards, or bass backwards, we used to say when we were kids, right? This is not the approach. This is a cart before the horse, okay? So just get in there, deep intent from your own being, and try to make that happen. Sound Mind Garden. Hello, Joshua Tree. Hello, Petra. Nicholas Anuloma, aka Nicholas. Every once in a while in my practice, when relaxing and expanding awareness into openness, characteristic of essence, sometimes I can go too much into the infinite space and lose touch with the blissful aspect of Sambhogakaya that triggers some kind of fear of dissolution or annihilation. My heart beats faster and I come out completely of that experience. Is that a common thing? What do you recommend to bypass that trigger response? Well, if you do 7 on the Enneagram, which I think I remember you do, right? Then this is also going to be an experience that 7s have more than other numbers when they go into that pure openness. 9s can have a little bit of experience of it, but 7s are really having it a lot. They go into the openness and they lose touch with that blissful Sambhogakaya, just like you said, and they get the experience of that pure empty openness, spaciousness, and they freak out because 7s are constantly distracted by their own energy and their own ego, just constantly. And to get under that is very difficult. So it's good, actually. And it's a part of stage 7 visiting you. So when you have this freak out that feels like it's going to dissolution, annihilation, what you want to do is relax and practice straight through it. It's like when I was in fraternity and they found everybody's weakness, they would then get your weakness. I mean, it's like tantric training. It's crazy. So my weakness was claustrophobia. So they would wrap me up in towels, blankets, tie me up, whatever, put me in the trunk of a car with a bunch of other crap in the trunk of the car, the back of the car, the boot, where I couldn't move and I was afraid I couldn't even breathe. And they'd lock the trunk of the car and they'd go driving for hours and sometimes leave me in a parking lot when they go in a restaurant. And sometimes they were like smoking pot and drinking or at least making me think they did, blowing smoke back through the thing. And I'd be freaking out thinking they're going to have a car accident in the winter, right? And so there's this sense of I had to go and say, I'm in this and there's no way out of it. I'm in this experience. There's no way out of it. I signed on for this. I might get back-ended by a Mack truck and smashed into the size of a 1-inch cube, but I got no way out of it now. So there's nothing I can do but experience the spiritual opening possibility here of going beyond my claustrophobia and relaxing and opening and relaxing and opening. And I just stayed with that breathing and stayed with that breathing, and that's what I had to do. It's like having a bad trip on drugs, on psychedelics, which you've probably had by now. So when you get into this space, one thing I'd recommend is don't try to get rid of it. Say, this is what's arising in my meditation, right? And if it's what's arising, be with what is and relax. Don't be moved and stay with it and stay with it and see if nihilism comes. See if total annihilation comes. So what? So what? You're in it now, So I would recommend going this way first before you try to find other ways to fix it. Other ways to stay slightly in touch with that energy of 7 pleasure and fun and adventure, or at least experiences. We love spiritual experiences. So for you, it sounds quite good. Sounds like 7 visiting, trying to mature your process, to maturate and ripen your process. So for now, stay with that. Don't do anything with it. I'll see you in Brazil in a few weeks. Jack, can you speak to the importance of the visualization component in our practice? Oh, yeah. Where's that? As opposed to the feeling quality. Okay. First of all, let's go to bhavana. Bhavana is the word in Sanskrit from the Kala tradition. You'll read about it in Machunda Samhita. There's a few pages on it in there, with some good notes in there from Alexis Sanderson and such, as well as Sabakis. And bhavana is the process of what he defines. Sabakis uses the words empathetic imagination to describe how we are invoking the deity's experience in our own being. How are we doing that? Very importantly, we're visualizing it. And second most important, equal, is we're feeling it. They're both important. You said not so much the feeling sense, but if we cover this question without the feeling sense, I'd be remiss. So the feeling sense is crucial. It's absolutely crucial to become the deity. What would it be like if I had this infinite power? What would it be like if I had this infinite compassion? What would it be like if I had this infinite mind of loving all beings and sensing their state? What would it be like if all things were my own being, my own body, no separation, etc.? Going through that is really important. The visual side is extremely important too, because it really helps activate the Sambhogakaya. They both do. Sambhogakaya is the seeing of the lights and the experience of those lights sensually, right? So we want to have both experiences. So the visual is kind of really important. Let me check your question again. The importance of visualizing. Yeah. So when you're visualizing channels and chakras and bindus and so forth, that's important too. It gives a structure to the experience. So the seeing of it in the light gives a structure to the experience. The feeling of it gives the dynamism and activation of it. When they both come together, the light and the sound come together. The vibrational quality is what we call the sound, and that's like the feeling level. And we could say the feeling level is related to that. And then the visualization is like the light level of light, sound, and rays. And so that makes it more whole. It makes it whole, without which it can be too much easily taken over by the intellect. But then again, this begs the question, Jack, the most important thing about inner visualization is that we're trying to work with non-dual energy instead of dual energy. And I just gave a pretty long talk about that yesterday in foundations class. I was going to ask if we could edit out that section. I wanted to post it on the Facebook group because I think this is one of the things that, I know it's the most misunderstood, not used aspect of spiritual practice in the world today, of Tantra, yoga, meditation, Dzogchen, Tantra, whatever, Vajrayana, is that we are attempting to activate a Sambhogakaya mandala, a Sambhogakaya deity, a Sambhogakaya mantra, a Sambhogakaya level of meditation experience, and we're not. We're getting the dualistic, right? But people don't know the difference, and this is really big. And I think I'm going to put this up on the YouTube channel once Sajidakini edits out, and we'll put it on Facebook. I'll launch it on Facebook just to let everybody get a real good look at it. It's a teaching we did in the foundation practice cohort, where we go through the foundation practices from a much deeper level, inner tantric, secret tantric level. And this came up really strongly because how will we be able to do those practices? Jorge, you may be interested in as well. If we're trying to constantly get to the non-dual experience of the mandala or the mantra or whatever our meditation, our own essence, but we're working at it from the dual, we never actually get there. You can't jump from the dual to the non-dual. It can't happen. Your intellect can paint pretty pictures, and awareness can like create sort of feelings like you're doing the non-dual, but you're not. And this is what I see in most of the coolest today, and why you don't see many siddhas anymore. I mean, where are the Western siddhas? Where are they? Where are the modern Indian teachers that say they're siddhas? Where are those Vajradharas? Where are they? Vidyadharas. I don't see them, right? It's because of this. It's a very subtle thing, and it won't even be understood, Jack, unless we have the proper view training to begin with, like really deep view training. It helps if we have some experience of non-dual states as well, non-dual energies, more realistic non-dual energies. Now, so that's to say that the visualization component and the feeling component should be non-dual ultimately, and it's very important to have both. Hey, Zane, how you doing? Korea there. Norway, hi, Oscar. Wow. I'll be in Norway too, teaching next year in the spring. That's cool. Norway and France next year, if you all want to, Europeans want to come on out. Hello, Padma. Yeah, jump rope. Padma used to come to that class, didn't she? Used to teach it. Right on, girl. Tara. Hi, Tara. Hi, great to see you here. Umedi, is working with the visualization of Papa Purusha and Tattva Shuddhi an example to go from dual energy to non-dual? Okay, that's the goal. That's one of the ways that ancient tantrics said, how can we get people to go from the dualistic crappy state to the non-dualistic state? Because we know if they're doing practice in the dualistic crappy state, the result is dualistic temporary energy cultivation, and it falls away. It's temporal. It goes away. All the good experiences fall away, right? This is why you see so many, oh, I'm doing so great in my Dharma, doing so great in my Dharma. 5-10 years later, they're not even practicing anymore. If it was yielding non-dual state, you know they'd be practicing. So it's not working, so they give it up, but they thought it was yielding non-dual state, right? Or they keep doing it because they just like it, but they get no real accomplishment, no real attainment. Tattva Shuddhi, in all of its forms, we teach 4 forms in our school, and there's many forms. There's even one from the Machunda Samhita that I don't teach, but it's really good. It'd be fun to add it to ours as well. Was an attempt by the Tantric masters to get us to see our limited reality, how we are limiting the expression of the 5 elements. Tattva Shuddhi means purification of the 5 elements, and how we can purify, meaning release the true non-dual experience of the 5 elements from how we're grasping on them, making them dualistic experiences. And these practices are great at bringing us into that deeper experience of the non-dual energy. But without understanding a way to ground it, it becomes something you visit and you come back. So eventually you have to learn how to integrate it. But yeah, Tattva Shuddhi is a good example of practices used for that. Hello, Nelson. Okay, Oscar. Does Bun and Shaivism have teachings resembling dependent arising, dependent origination as Buddhism? I see this in the Buddhist versus Hindu view arguments sometimes. I'd actually rather do that live with you to make sure we don't mess up what I understand and what you understand as dependent arising, dependent origination. Nothing I've seen in Shaivist view is countered by anything I've seen in Vajrayana view or Bumpo view. And Oscar, this may make a lot of sense to you when you understand that Vajrayana was literally stolen, if I can say it, really was literally stolen from non-dual Shaivist practice in Kashmir in the 6th century. This is not a question. It's absolutely affirmed through philology and the great masters of that science of literature and tracing thoughts through literature and when things developed, especially Alexis Sanderson, who's so masterful at it. He found that 49%, 48 point something percent of the original Vajrayana texts themselves, which started the entire Buddhist tantric movement, came directly plagiarized without any changes from Kashmir Shiva's texts. So there is really nothing different in the original view, the 8th, 9th, 10th century views of what's called Kashmir Shaivism with Buddhist view. Same with Bun. However, I think in the subsequent years after like 1150, 1200, with wave after wave of colonization of India and so on, breaking down their structures of transmission of the teachings in their purest form, I believe from about 9th, 10th century onward, India and Kashmir especially being at the forefront of where the Muslim invasions occurred and so forth, Mongols, Mughals and so forth. I think we started to lose a lot of the deeper understanding of the tradition that completely is equal, harmonious, analogous to Bun and Buddhist view. And I see that now a lot. The concretization of Shiva as a supreme deity versus the more open and flowing understanding that the yogins had by the time the Shaivism had flourished into its highest expressions, and they lost it. The poetic understanding of Shiva as a deity became more of a concretized understanding as the deity, like almost like a Christian God or Yahweh kind of thing. That and other types of problems in the philosophy came up, which prevented it in the last 500-800 years from evolving or producing really great masters. I mean, you had them here and there. You had Neem Karoli Baba and you had Nityananda Baba and you had Ramana Maharishi. I mean, these are equal masters to anything Tibet produced for sure. But in Tibet, you had more of an ability with the practitioners, more of an ability to transmit down the line the proper view teachings, which guided the proper understanding, because they didn't have wave after wave of conquests, and being taken over, a civilization taken over by the conquerors, colonization, right? Eventually, Christianity had a deep influence. Islamic Christianity had a deep influence on the Dharma in India. There's no way around it. And it started to take on this kind of heavenly oneness kind of flavor, which it never had before. So, yeah, that was a problem. But what I teach is the original Shaivism, and there's no distinction you could really make. I think if I was sitting there, Zongzar Rinpoche is big about being a Buddhist. He likes carrying the Buddhist flag really big. And if I was giving a lecture and I didn't say any key words in Sanskrit, but only spoke in English, but I only spoke from the Shaivist perspective, and he was in the audience, at the end, he'd probably come up and say, "Hey, what Buddhist school are you from? I'm a Nyingma, da, 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 da." We'd have a great conversation. And I'd tell him, I'm not. Or this lecture was on Shaivism, even though I practice some Vajrayana and Bun and Dzogchen, and so on. That's how they wouldn't be able to tell the difference, right? So this idea that Buddhism is somehow fundamentally different than non-dual Shaivism is true in one way because it's misrepresented lately, but not really in its core. Akita, hi, Akita. California, I thought you were in New York. Wow. Love to talk about Enneagram 7. Yeah, I do Enneagram 7. There's a bunch of us here, 7s. Anytime you want to rock out 7 style with us, we've got a nice cold beer here for you. Some nice music to play. Mehdi is Tattva Shuddhi taught in the preliminaries and foundation teach. So Tattva Shuddhi, there's a basic form of Tattva Shuddhi in the foundation practice itself. Which you, right? Yeah. Yeah, first basic level Tattva Shuddhi. You want to go deeper, we got to do it together in trainings. Jack, would it be possible for nada to manifest as disturbing sound in an unprepared vessel? Or is this more like an expression of aggravated vata prana? Yeah, nada will never disturb you. So that's not nada. So if nada arises, It may arise as sound. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika is big on that. Some other old text. I never had it occur to me as sound more than a few times, to be honest. It comes through more as some kind of paraphysical vibratory experience, if that makes paraphysical vibratory experience that has a certain light quality, light, not light as in heavy light, but light as in luminosity associated with it as well. So it can never be that. So yeah, if it's coming through and it's a bit disturbed, a bit vata prana, take care of your health that way. And you're welcome, Oscar. Okay. In the studio audience, anybody? I might want to see you. So I think I'll swing this so you get my lovely profile. Okay, now I can see. This 1962 model. Okay. Oh, there you are.
I have a question.
Yeah, that's better. One more. Can it go this way? A face.
So recently in class, we mentioned spiritual fasting, and I was wondering if you can say a little bit more to that, and also, like, what is the utility of that? And are there maybe signs that spiritual fasting is like now a good method for the practitioner? Maybe to talk more.
Spiritual fasting.
Yeah.
When to use spiritual fasting? What's it like? What are the signs it's working? Spiritual fasting is to be used in our system, especially when we wonder if we are clinging to a practice and clinging to a fruit of a practice. Am I clinging too much to this? And by clinging, am I generating it from my own psyche? Right? I mean, I've got stories. Students have come, I've been talking to over 1,000 students in my life, and many of them will come and say, I'm having this experience, I'm having that experience, like they're completely enamored with their own experience and lost in it. And the truth is, it's being generated by their own psyche, by their own deep interest and fascination with themselves. It's a type of narcissism, type of ego, hard to avoid in these practices. Everyone's gone through it. I've gone through it at times, and teachers can regulate us and adjust us on that if we're open to listening to that adjustment, that wisdom advice. So we want to fast when we're wondering. First of all, you got to be fairly awake to even wonder if you're getting caught. Thank God. So you're awake enough to wonder if you're getting caught. Spiritual fast and check it out. But if you're in a process where you were taught that it's going to take 1 or 2 years to stabilize this experience of the practice, don't fast on it at that time. You've got to go through it and then just disconnect your ego structure from it as much as possible. Because in the accumulation of temporal energies, sometimes that runs parallel. Accumulating temporal energy runs parallel to your opening experience of revelation of non-dual. They're needed, like fake it till you make it. And you need it to go together in practice. If I could be real pragmatic about it. And if I cut this one off, if I cut off the dualistic energy I'm raising while I'm opening into the non-dual that it's pointing at too soon, it all drops. And I lose it all. So we don't want a spiritual fast too soon there. Another way to spiritual fast is when your teacher recommends it. Another one, not time to do it, is when you're testing out stage 7. Am I in 7? Am I not in 7? Not sure. Haven't had a dialogue with your teacher about it. You're away in retreat in the mountains or something. Let me just fast and see. Because stage 7 should bring with it some permanent level of change that's demonstrable, palpable, sensible. And then spiritual fasting at 7 would say like, oh yeah, cool. And then what would be the signs though? See, what are the signs of spiritual fasting? Okay, you're losing your grasping on results of practice. But then what would be a sign that if I'm saying stage 7, I spiritual fast, what is a sign that it's not working? That the fasting is working, but it's showing me I'm not in 7. Is that, it was a temporal experience. My equanimity is falling away. My base connection to awareness as an unbroken experience that I reference more than referencing or give more value to than my mental agitation, cogitation, then my emotional disturbance and energy, then my physical activities. 7 replaces that hierarchy with awareness of essence, maybe not in natural presence all the time as a full-blown experience that you can bring out, because the situation may not allow it. Simply, when you're not in stage 10 yet, where you can do it no matter what. Attacked by a tiger, you're still in natural presence in stage 10. Tiger becomes your kitty cat. In 10, you can actually shrink it down to be a kitty cat. So, there's a difference. But your spiritual fasting in 7, if you think you're doing 7, would show you, oh no, I was maintaining some false non-dual trance state. I was maintaining this a little bit. This wasn't really, or a lot. This wasn't really where I was. And you got to give it enough time, because those can last a while. It's kind of recommended to do spiritual fasting for close to like 6 months when you get the real result. Again, it's kind of contraindicated when you are in the building phase. It's like you're a bodybuilder, you don't want to fast. You can't. You can't. You're bodybuilding, you can't fast at the same time. You're going to absolutely slow your progress. There's no question about it. Maybe even stop the muscle growth because your body's getting no food, and you send a signal to your epigenome saying, stop making muscles. You got no food. So in the same way, you're making kind of temporary spiritual muscles that then lead you to realize something deeper, and you can let go of those temporary spiritual muscles without even spiritual fasting. As you go through the stages, they'll continue to fall away on their own as non-essential. But when you do the spiritual fasting and it's really time to do it, a good 6 months is usually needed to get down to the base. The residual halo of the practices and the temporal energies can keep going. You go 2 months into it, I haven't done any practice and I'm still holding so amazing. That's still effort, ego structure. 6 months, you'll be bored. 1 year, you'll definitely be bored, right? So the first time I tried it, I did it for 6 months, and it really changed me. It really set me up for 7 in a beautiful way. Parts of 5 that were not supposed to be there fell away. I was moving into 6, and I decided to spiritual fast to see what would be left, and all bunch of things left that were coming through as baggage from 2, 3, 4, 5 into 6. And I was like, this is great. So it set up 7 a lot easier, a lot better. That was a long period, 6 months, but it was good. Good question.
What is the difference between trance states and bhavanas?
What is the difference between trance states and bhavana? Okay. When you do bhavana, it is a trance state. So one of the 5 spiritual capacities of a human, which gives the 5 main spiritual practices we use as a human in Mahāsiddha tradition, one of them is trance. Humans have the ability to trance. Let's understand trance from the Jagrat Svapna Sushupta, right? Turiya Bhoga Samvit phrase that pays from the Shiva Sutras. What does it mean? Waking, dreaming, and sleeping, all suffused by the 4th state, gives me the true enjoyment of all those 3. The 4th state, the awareness of essence presence, right? So when I am invoking the bhavana, I'm hoping to move out of discursive mind. I'm hoping to move out into that trance, to experience myself in a little more expanded way, which is the beginnings of Turiya. I want to be in that dreamy place. When you're in a dream, all kinds of crazy things happen in your dream that could never happen in the real life, because it's just too solid, too intellectually run by your mind. But the dream is the dream body. It's not your waking mind. It's not Jagrat, it's Svapna, and anything can happen there. So when we are doing trance practice, we're dreaming. And literally in Sanskrit way of categorizing, classifying in Kashmir Shaivism, it would be called Jagrat Svapna. And it can be Jagrat Svapna Jagrat. It can go 3 deep, because then the trance, you're actually doing something functional, which takes a certain waking capacity. So you're going into trance of the dream deeper. Then within that, you're doing something that's an awakening function with the dream body in the trance. This is how shamans operate a lot. So what was your question? Bhavana, right? So trance and bhavana. So is that what it was? So trance states are not bad in Tantra unless they are causing you to be not present in your normal life. But when we sit down to perform a trance state on purpose, to tap into the dream state energy body, which is correlated to the Shakti Bindu or Sambhogakaya, the non-dual energy state, that's inherent within our being, but we can't touch it much. We go into dream level, dream body. We go into trance that way because it makes it easier for us to touch and feel that. Because it's hard with your intellect. It's impossible, actually, with the Jagrat, waking state of consciousness, which is ruled by intellect. So we want to use those trance states and go in deeper. Then it's another story of how do we make that pragmatic and bring out a holistic experience of our life as all three states of Jagra, Swapna, Sushupta, waking, dream, and sleeping, all together, suffused by the one state where our experience is one with three flavors, right? We have to learn how to do that. But the bhavanas that we're doing when we're, like Jack Wright's question earlier about visualization, I don't know if he meant deities or bindus and chakras, but it doesn't matter. Whether it's the inner landscape of the energy body or whether it's deities that we're practicing visualization about or tattvas or something, it's all the same. We want to be in that light trance. We want to be in a light trance. We want to move Jagrat Swapna. We don't want Swapna to take over. We don't want to go into pure dream mode because then we've lost the ability to function as well with our intellectual mind to some degree. We want light trance. So you have your intellectual mind represented and you have your dream body both represented, right? And then that is what allows for the opening of your capacities to experience something other than the rigid boundaries of this Jagrat world, of the square world. So we want it to happen. We just don't want it to happen when we don't want it to happen. We want to be in control of when it happens, that kind of situation, basically. Sometimes we even have to do some sadhanas if we're so rigid where we have to be able to let go of control. Here, I think of the classic example of Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda. Carlos was there with his notebook taking notes all the time, and Don Juan couldn't get him to experience even the light trance of what he was talking about, to know the other bodies that he had. And this is true in that tradition down there as much as it is in yoga tradition. And then he had him take some drugs, mescalito. I'm going to introduce you to mescalito. What's that? Here, eat this cactus. Okay. All of a sudden he's seeing a guy like a wolf and a wolf like a guy. And like, what the hell? And so he had to have psychopharmaceutical method to move him out of his rigidly held Jagrat consciousness, the awareness, the awakeness of the intellectual mind. It became a prison. We want to be able to be more flexible that and move out into that. That's why it's important to dance and have dance parties by yourself at times, to get massages, to really understand lovemaking, because it shouldn't be intellectual. Could you imagine? I mean, so many people screw from the Jagrat consciousness. It's just like, it should be something more trancey, more dreamy, that helps you open up the boundaries, because you're directly touching this Sambhogakaya energy in sexuality. And then we're trying to push it back into a Jagrat intellectual consciousness experience. You shouldn't. Let it be what it is and let it open. Let your pranayama open that way. Let your Mahakumbhaka, inner fire, especially open up into that way. That's trance practice too. I hope you know that, right? That's trance practice. Now we've learned, 2 weeks ago, I taught you how to use an oracle that we use in the system. And you're all using that now. So that's trance practice. And based on how effective your trance is, your reading will be that effective, basically. So we have to use trance. It's not a dirty word. It is, though, when people don't realize. Here's the thing I used to harp on, right? When I first used to teach in the West, I found everybody was walking around in a dream. I don't mean in a healthy way. Everybody's walking around in a dream of, I'm a Kardashian, want to be a Kardashian. Or everything was about fame and image and being cool and being, before the woke thing happened, it was, what was it, like hippy dippy, new agey, neo tantra-y, like, I don't know, some weird kind of groovy way of being that was an unconscious trance state, unconscious dream. And it made them very non-functional. They weren't very clear. They weren't very direct. They couldn't keep obligations. They couldn't hold jobs. They didn't had aversion to all that because they were in the dream. Huh? Yeah, it was like, right. Sajidakini's got it. It was the trance of the God realm. And it was hugely predominant when I was sent back to America by my gurus in 97, 98. I was sent back from India, Australia. to open up and teach and stuff. And it was huge starting then, but I mean, it just got huger. It got so big that the population, and I was living in Berkeley, which was like the West Coast headquarters of it, I think. There was a few headquarters like Telluride, Colorado, Crestone, Sedona, Arizona. Now there's many, many more, and they become these hot spots. Now it's the number one place is, I think, now Koh Phangan in Thailand, the island of Koh Phangan, because it's an island and because it's outside Western culture. They're able to create a terrarium of God realmers sitting in this little glass bubble terrarium of absolute lunacy, like loony people doing loony things they're calling spiritual. And, that's what I came back to. So when I came back first to teach, the warrior intent of me as a kind of person was like, okay, we're cutting through this shit. This got to go. This got to go. These people are like out to lunch. Oh yeah, I got 150 people showing up for a workshop on the weekend in Berkeley, but nobody's present. They're all there with how amazing it is for them to be there and how amazing this technology came to them. It must be a sign. I was in the weekend when this was being offered, and that guru person, whatever, this is, underneath, this is the narcissism of that kind of trance. So it was that kind of trance. And if it wasn't that, it wasn't like strongly narcissistic, then it was just simply a naive kind of childlike or childish, actually really immature fascination with the magical thinking and the magical aspects of the trance dream kind of practice, right? Portland, just look at you. I just thought Portland. Yeah. She and I'd walk around and go, oh my God, we're not in Kansas anymore. We're in Portland. The whole city's been transformed into a dream trance, but people would come in. If it wasn't that narcissistic thing, it was just like a childish naivete of the magical thinking that this was spiritual work. You were going to supplant the reality with some magical overlay with magical thinking. That's what they thought the mandala was, instead of the mandala being revealed as everything that is, So good question. So I had to cut through it. So I spent a lot of years telling people, stay present, no trances, cut it out, may have backfired in the end, but anyway. Yes.
With navaratri starting tomorrow, is there maybe a practice that you can suggest that's within our system that we can add?
Yeah, if you know a way of water, if you've had Abhisheka into Durga sadhana, Lakshmi sadhana, Kali sadhana, that's Navaratri. That's the time to do those 3 sadhanas over the 9 days. And on the last day, the 10th day, you celebrate the unification of all the goddesses as the one mother goddess, the overarching. Saraswati. Sorry, so you do Durga, Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati. And then Durga's on the last day as the overarching mother they all come from. Right. I'm a Durga devotee, so I just do Durga for 10 days and slip in a little bit of, Om I'm Saraswati, Om Cream, Kalakaya Namaha, like that. I just slip it a little bit in there, a little Lakshmi, Om Shrim Lakshmi Jaya Namaha, because, but anyway, that's the way to do it. And then if you know a way of water and you know how to do the puja, then it's really beautiful and powerful. We used to always do a big thing for Navaratri. Were you ever there for that? Yeah, it was really beautiful. And it got people to reinvoke that dream body again and remember the divine feminine that's represented by the red bindu, by the red right channel, by the sun, the great creatrix. The outer and inner could come together and we could keep surrendering into that dynamism, the power of the feminine, the Shakti of the feminine, riding the tiger, Durga riding the tiger or the lion as you wish to visualize her, which way, doesn't matter. Big cat, has that Shakti under control. It's her. And surrendering into that and the dreamy way of recognizing, our life is really run a lot more by the flow of our nadi than it is by our choices. Sometimes we get too hung up and like conflicted over these big choices we have to make instead of flowing along with everything, not an unconscious flow, not an unconscious observer, a co-creator. So I think that really is powerful in our practice. So running off the, if you do the puja, you do the puja, full or short, do the mantras at least contemplate, do a bhavana of each deity, each of the days, so you can remember, what would it be like if I was Saraswati? How would I speak? how would I think? How clear would I be? How compassionate? How poised and equanimous in my beautiful, peaceful, white little body would I be, you know? And then do a little bit of Kali for the other days. How would it be if I was really sharp and cutting and on it? And as a 9 Enneagram number, didn't walk away thinking what I should have said to that person, you know, right? Oh, I'm going to get him next time. You know, what if I stood my ground? What if I had wrath? What if my wrath was erotic? What if I could be actually strong and smoldering with laser-like power, but also be feminine and soft at the same time? That's not a usual presentation. Usually we have to be like completely to be feminine, right? That's not a pretty look, and that's not what it is. So navaratri is what the real feminine is. Contemplate that one. And then contemplate what it would be to Lakshmi. What if I was this huge, fecund, large-breasted, large butt, big, sharing, generous energy that no matter how much anybody took could never deplete me? I could feed all beings, nourish all beings in the universe with the milk flowing from my breast, with the love pouring from my cowy eyes, you know? That's Lakshmi, right? So we could feel the generosity of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is not money. So you can feel the generosity and love of Lakshmi. That's very powerful. So maybe some mantras, definitely the bhavana, and maybe try to act like it in our body, speech, and mind for those 9 days. And 10th day, celebrate the union of it. It happens every fall and every spring, right? And you can get 2 times a year, you get a shot at it.
So it's a 10 day?
10 days.
Do we
9 nights. Navaratri means 9 nights of the triple goddesses. Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati. And on the 10th day, it comes together as Durga. The next pilgrimage I said I'm going to host, one of the next ones, I forget what year we picked. What was it for the Vindhya mountain ranges? And there's next year or one after?
2024, we're hoping for a pilgrimage. I'm not sure which one.
So we decided on 2 of them, and we'll have to check the dates. One of them is going to the round yogini temples to do true Kaula practice in the yogini temples in India. The real thing, hadn't been done for a long time, not the scholar version. And the other one is maybe the same trip. Who knows? We make it a long one, but we have another one planned to go to the Vindhya mountain range in central India, where the 3 goddess mountains are there, where there's 1 mountain for each one of these goddesses with 1 temple for each one, and do their sadhanas on each and get that real powerful experience of the Shaktipata of that. Yeah, which by then, if people had come to the way of water this next year coming up, January, February, you can all participate in the rituals. You don't have to sit there like watching, which would be very cool. Yes. Any other questions?
Did you answer?
What was your question? Did you have one?
I think I got the answer. It's 3 days of Saraswati practice and 1
You look it online. It's got it all there. I'm not going to teach the whole thing now. And I just said
3 day of each.
3 day of each, last day total. Yeah. Anybody else? Bajavira?
What happens when you are with someone unresolved karma and he dies and kind of still hanging in between, but he's gone.
Yeah.
And no one actually can take on his karma.
What? Is that it? What happens when you have a person that you know who died and you have unresolved karma with them? What happens to that? No one else can take that on. What happens? That feeling of unresolved karma is only coming from you. So, and it's difficult though, because that's why it's so nice to resolve things while people are alive, right? Because if I hear I have something to resolve with Jamie and I'm talking to Jamie and we're resolving, I go, are you good now? We're good? We're good? We don't have to punch each other out. We're all good. I don't owe you any money. You don't owe me. Everything's good. Okay, great. Hug it out. Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, it's good to be back in that relationship. Karma's gone. Jamie rides his bike down the hill, truck. No. Oh, so glad we were, in a good state. Better take the back road today. Better take the back road. So glad that Jamie and I are in such a beautiful state before he died or I died. That feeling is a bad feeling. And that's precisely the reason that I always talk to my kids at night before they go to bed. I always make sure anything's resolved between us. Even if it can't be, I say to my son, It's usually my son, sometimes my daughter, but I'll say, look, I love you, bud. And I want you to know I love you no matter what. I know you're going through a process. I know we don't agree right now, but just remember underneath this is something much deeper than anything we could disagree about. Just go to bed with that feeling. I don't want us to go to bed sad or, and I'm a yogi father. So I'll say to them, we could die during the night. You don't want to have that feeling, guilt them out a little bit. And so they open their heart due to guilt, Catholic guilt. And we have a connection. They always hug him and kiss him goodnight, even though he's 16-year-old man as big as me now. That's just how it is in us Italian families, So you don't really want, when someone dies, you don't want to leave anything. And it's something that we go through a lot. We talk about a lot in death and dying teachings. We have to resolve as much as we can with someone who's dying. If we have the time to do it, it's really great. Our loved ones, that kind of thing. But once someone dies and we didn't get a chance to resolve something, if we feel like, oh God, that karma, okay, that karma is literally being generated by us. We literally can drop it and go, oh, didn't get to do it. I'm not responsible for their bad transiting of the bardos. I'm not responsible for, you just drop it all. And for some of it, it's hard because it was, stronger karma. But that means you had a stronger investment, stronger attachment. You just got to let go. And I think about warriors on the battlefield, every time you go, you're losing one of your friends, if not a whole bunch. So there just wasn't any time for holding. Everybody had to be in that space, first of all, of like, hey, this could be it. So that's true in the ancient warrior way. No one was holding with each other, especially. But then if there was anything that was held, everybody knew the game. When you're dead, it's on you. When they're dead, it's on you. And so as harsh as it sounds, it's our own sentimentality at that point, our own confused suffering that's still generating the pain of the karma. There's no karma left except the one you're generating. Let's put it that way. There's no karma left between you and a dead person except the one you're generating. But I get them in my dreams. They come in my dreams. They come in your dreams, or you bring them in with all of your continued sentimentality and attachment. That's what's really happening, right? Yeah. Like when we go through dream yoga practice and we do like a year or two intent on it, which we've done in school at times, and people's experience of their deceased family members increases in their dream yoga. That's because there's unresolved sentimentality of the family members, or, well, that's family members too, like spouses and so on. Some occasionally friends, but usually family strongest. They're coming to me. My ancestors are coming to me. So from the dream world lay practitioner, we'd say the ancestors are communicating to you. But we know as spiritual practitioners is what's really going on. So I say to the lay person who doesn't have the capacity for understanding it, I go to the grave this week, every single day, make this special offering with this mantra. It clears everything of the karma between you two. So the person's confident. They go, they put their fruit basket out, some flowers, wave some incense. They do this special mano om pintere namaha om pintere namaha. And I said, at the end of it, and the last one, you do the final offering, it's all gone. Then you talk to them on day 8, 9. Having any dreams? No, they're all gone. Right? It's them losing their attachment. But I can tell you directly as yogins, you don't need to do anything outwardly. You just lose your attachment. However, because we are as above, so below, making those offerings is often quite good. Because you too have a psyche. And then you do feel like I did make that offering and I did complete the relationship with the person. Right? Do we feel like those offerings actually go essentially a bit to that person? We teach that they do. We teach that prayer is effective in a sense. Doesn't matter how effective, it is effective to some degree. So it's worth doing, And so that's how that works. Okay. Good question. Very good one.
Question that came in about the trance states at the very bottom.
Sacred Creative Akita. When I find myself in an unfocused, unconscious trance state during the day, what do I do? How can I snap out of it? Well, if you find yourself in it, then you're already on your way to snapping out of it, Akita. So that's good. What can you do? Have a shot of espresso? Right? You're not in New York anymore, right? Unfocused, unconscious trance state. What can I do? Well, in the spiritual tradition, we do a sound. Put! We do that. Put! A piercing sound of put. P-H-A-T, right? Or Tibetans do it. Put! Like that. PHE kind of sound. But it's put or pet. You can do that. Or if you can't shout that, it's kind of funny. We were with a Lama recently who said, so if you're in that state and you're in a room full of people or a restaurant, just shout it. And we're like, a restaurant full of people, like a fine dining. Yeah, you can just shout it. And we're like, what the fuck? And he says, yeah. And it was kind of interesting. It blew everybody's mind. And it was a really good little play the Lama did on everybody, because it's true. You could be in a fine dining, 5-star, whatever, sitting there eating. Oh, Jeffrey, how was your steak? It was very good. Sort of, and then just go right back to it. And the whole place would go like this, look at you, and you'd be eating and cutting up normally, talking to Jeffrey again like that. And the whole place would be like, okay. They would just go right back like nothing happened, because it's cognitive dissonance, So Akita, you can let loose your putts out there, wherever it happens to you, or you can use that moment to identify it. Use the identification. Oh, this is the trance state. This is like dream. What does this feel like? Make reference points for what's it feel like, for what it feels like. So when you go back into your practice, when you want to use it practically, you can use it, right? But then you just have to double down and wake up in the situation, right? But the put is what is used traditionally in our techniques. Okay. Daniel Brown, PhD. Yeah, he always gets even posthumously, gets his PhD in there. Unbelievable. Dan, unbelievable. He died recently, and this guy's a crack up. I knew him well, practiced in the same building with him in the Bumpo practice hall in Menri Monastery when the first time he came for a visit. I went to do my practice retreat, and Holiness made me take him under my wing, and I almost died. I was like, I got to do my own practice retreat. I didn't come here to babysit some PhD guy. He introduces himself. Hi, Dr. Daniel Brown, PhD. Dr. Daniel Brown, PhD. How many doctors can you go? Hi, I'm Dr. Dharma Bodhi, MD. Who says MD? Hi, I'm Dr. Bodhi, DC. No, if you say doctor, you leave the end off. You know what I mean? If I say, hi, Dharma Bodhi, DC, okay, that's okay. But that's a wank. Who introduces yourself with your title of the degree of God? Anybody? Do any of you? Leave the door. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Daniel Brown, oh man, the fun I had with him. Sweet guy at heart, like all of us, very stuck on his PhD. He even had his assistant introduce him to me. We're standing there together out in nowhere, right in front of the yoga temple, about to go into the retreat temple. We're meeting. And she walks up, he stops 2 meters away, and she walks up an extra meter in front, like the formal greeting from the ancient world. Hello, Dharma Bodhi. This is Dr. Daniel Brown, PhD. And I'm like, I know, he's right there. Why can't I said this? Because this is New York me. Like, I don't want to get too profane with it, but I said, I know, I see him standing there. Why doesn't he introduce himself? Does he not speak? I go, does he not speak? Because I was pissed off. I had to run somebody through a retreat and everything. And it was, oh no, I can talk. He get all unruffled about that. Dr. Daniel Brown, PhD. I go, you did it again? And that was the tone of our whole relationship. So you can see why I'm, but you shouldn't make fun of the deceased. He just died. May he do well in the Bardos afterwards. He certainly had a lot of great teachers. I'm sure they're taking care of him in the Bardos. Yeah. He translated a few books, and I know from a few high lamas that I study with, he did not take the notes in that the lamas gave about mistranslations and kept it all in there. So you know that about the translations. Leave it at that. So Daniel has done some secular teachings, science on helping people who are left after someone has died. Yeah. So Oscar, here is Dan's great contribution to the world. Maybe he made contributions teaching Mahamudra that he did before he found Bumpo Dzogchen. I don't know, really. I never went to one of his teachings. It was more reverse when I knew him. But he was, I think, but he says this and his assistant said it, but probably true, probably the world authority on post-traumatic stress disorder due to war. And he was constantly going over to The Hague and giving testimony and doing that kind of stuff. So this seems like, as a psychologist, his PhD was psychology, I'm pretty sure. He seems to be, he was the cat who kind of knew about this and And that was his area of expertise. So if he made some kind of secular teaching or science on helping people left after someone's died, it's probably pretty good. And if what I'm telling you doesn't work, you can't drop it. I'd check out Dr. Daniel Brown, PhD's something website, which might have that on it. Thanks, Oscar. Okay. And you know, you got to understand, when I take the Mickey out of somebody, it's not heartfelt. I don't hate people, or, you know, there are certain people I wouldn't want to have tea with, but it doesn't mean I hate them or have any less compassion for them. And Daniel is one of my Kula brothers now that he took initiation with holiness, and I was in charge of helping him out for a while. So, you know, he's part of my Kula, so I love him that way. And that's the way that is. But you don't have to get along with everybody unless they try harder. Sacred Creatives. I'm going to try that today. Good. Thank you. You're welcome. Magpie City. Still here. No nuclear apocalypse yet. I imagine you're someone writing from, I don't know who Magpie City is, but I imagine you're in Ukraine. So I'm glad you're still there. And no major nuclear apocalypses have happened. Yes, let's avoid that at all costs. Yes, I get it, Oscar. Sorry about that. Sometimes I'm a bit cheeky, have a bit of fun. You know, it's a long day. Okay.
Referring to last time in class, we talk about, you know, this whole time, no time is like what is living on for our fingertips. And then we talk about taking pictures and like freezing times and moments and pictures, and that.
You mean real photographs?
Yeah.
Like you do in your camera all day? Yeah. Freezing time in a photograph, which can't happen.
So before, actually, I noticed that I don't really like taking photographs. Like when we go with families and friends, you know, and choosing like that. So it's past. Just enjoy it. But after I got this new iPhone, you, I took one and two and again. And you're really good. Okay, so I start taking.
Someone's asking a question here. Hang tight. Take a while. Takes a while. Takes a while for this student to get to the question.
This role of photographer, and how to should I stop, because it's like
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's talking about how we try to freeze time by taking photos with the human realm, and how the cameras have become an extension of our brain, and we're constantly taking photos with these iPhone cameras, Samsung triple, quadruple lens cameras. Yeah. Should I stop? Yeah, stop. Like, stop shooting everything. I mean, you got to take a photo of something so the repairman knows what you want fixed, whatever. This is a great new tool that helps us get more efficient, you know. But with all the so-called efficient tools trying to give us more time in life, we end up filling it with more garbage. So you end up taking a whole bunch of photos you don't need. In fact, yesterday, just as a funny synchronicity to this, I deleted 600 photos from my phone, and that was only going back a month. Because you just accumulate, all the work that was done in the backyard, and all the stuff that comes downloaded somehow automatically. I've got to turn that off in my phone somehow, from all WhatsApp and Facebook. Somehow all these images end up there. I'm like, what the hell is this? I didn't load this. So, you know, because I don't want them. I don't want freezing time like that. Like, you know, so yeah, get out of that habit of trying to freeze time and capture it human realm style, right? Instead of having the moment, the present moment, we capture it with photos. That's what we do in the human realm to concretize. And it just creates more attachment. It's no good. Anybody else out there? What is merit in Buddhism? I don't want to speak as a Buddhist authority, even though I'm initiated as a Bumpo and a Buddhist, but merit simply could be the accruing of an energetic, positive karmic momentum from doing good deeds of service that are selfless. Let's put it at that. Simple definition like that, right? Yeah. And we want to accrue merit. It's a path, but focusing on it too much leads to too much spiritual materialism. Anybody else? Nothing came in live. We're all good? Okay. So that was a great Yogi to Yogi. I will come back to the front shot. All right. Wonderful, everybody. And we'll see you in the next one. Is it next month, maybe?
Probably
November?
Yeah, not October, because we're going to be traveling.
Yeah, October I'm traveling, teaching. So November. Okay. All right. Everybody, all the best. May you be well. Sarva Mangalam. Thanks for being here. See you again someday or some bardo.